I'm going to call to order the Playground Working Group meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, regular meeting agenda, Thursday, April 27th, 2023, 8:49 a.m. now. Welcome, everybody. I wanted to actually quickly introduce Pam Garrity because she's our newest member. We have another person, Sarah, but she's not on yet. But thank you so much for joining us. Pam lives close to Cherry Lawn Park, so I felt like she would be a great addition to our group. Thank you and welcome. The second item on our agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from March 9th, 2023. Any changes or additions? Anybody?
I have one change at the very end. It should say next meeting, April 27th. Because I know we had talked about doing an earlier meeting and then we had decided that it was coming right off a break or whatever. So just that's the one change, April 27th.
Great catch. Thank you very much, Patty. So that's a great change. Anybody else?
No, I was going to suggest the same thing as Patty.
Thank you. Great minds think alike, I think. So a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Move.
Patty, second. Ruth, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Great. We got you the paperwork portion. Let's dive right into the Baker Park Playground wish list. Ruth, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Well, I think Baker, when we first met as a committee, I think this was one of the ones that I remember being like the point person for, and then we kind of all started working together. And I think that my things that keep coming up for Baker, which is a park that my kids in the neighborhood for, would be more of that like ropes course. So I think the thing that we keep coming up to is like the climbing ropes and making it more nature, more of a natural environment in that place that will flow better with all the trees. But I was there this morning with my dog, and I was just looking at it, and I think we have to be very mindful of how dark in that area and how wet it gets. So just thinking about the material with the elements and things like that. So I don't know from a rope perspective, if we did go that route, how that would do long term, because I do think the stuff that's up there right now is more the water drips off, right? So I think that's one thing to be very mindful of, whereas the other playgrounds get a lot more sun.
That's good. Great feedback, Ruth. Pam, I don't know if you've spent any time at Baker, if you have any thoughts on that too.
No, I completely agree. And I love the fact that this committee is thinking about keeping that more natural, rather than the typical playground material that is out there now. So I think that's, it's going to be a nice change to kind of look into that type of different material.
Ruth, you're right. When wood gets wet and then it becomes like slimy because it's got a little bit of that sheen on it, it's so slippery. It's actually quite dangerous. I've done it myself because I have wood decks, and once it gets wet and that algae forms on it, I think it's algae, it's green.
Yeah, the green, yeah.
It's pretty awful. And I was just there too. And it is you're right. There's a lot of trees. It's shaded. And the way the sun.
I think it tends to get really buggy there.
Buggy, did you say?
I think it tends to get very buggy over at Baker. I think it tends to get very buggy over there. Is there any pest control that you're allowed to do or not allowed to do? What is that situation? Nothing.
We wouldn't as a town ever spray for mosquitoes there. I don't think it actually isn't effective either. It's just what I've seen is sometimes there's landscaping stuff that people put in that deters pests, like natural things. And I would probably, if we have to do something, I'd go more natural, or figure out if there are any wet spots, if we can have the town put some of that BT. It's actually a natural product that stops the egg production of the mosquitoes, so that it doesn't kind of become a breeding ground, let's say, because it is kind of wet back there.
Well, you have all that swamp, you have the lake back there, and the problem with that too is a lot of wildlife drink that water, and I've seen deer in there, and dogs go in there, so I'd be mindful of that as well. But it is a very wet environment. It's very mosquito-y. I agree.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's one of those issues that even mosquito sprays, I've talked to a lot of people that do that, and they said that it's effective for a short term, and then it just doesn't work. And and quite frankly, it's non-selective, which means that it doesn't only kill the mosquitoes, it kills everything else around it. So from a natural, conservation point of view, it would be ironic, sad to put something down that would destroy the natural part of
Yeah,
that
I
area.
agree. They do have the mosquito, like, they're almost like, look like bird feeders on a stick. I don't know firsthand how effective those are, but I believe that they only target mosquitoes. Maybe,
Yeah,
I
we
don't-
could, you know what, Pam, that might be a great spot, if you don't mind, if you want to do a little research on that, because it sounds like
will,
you've already
yeah.
thought about it. I
Yeah.
think we're open to anything. I mean, we don't want it to be the park to be unusable due to mosquitoes for obvious reasons.
Right,
So,
right.
do you have any other feedback also, Pam Garrity, while we have you speaking on the park itself? If you think of any features that you think would be there that you would like to see?
No, the feedback, so my kids are between 8 and 13. And that tends to be more of a younger playground. So we don't really go there if we are going to pick a playground. That one tends to be more of a little kid. It's a smaller space. If you added some ropes, maybe a little ropes course or something, that could kind of bring your age level up, potentially. But no, it's always been a whole lot of fun over there, but it's small and it's just a lot of like strollers.
That's
Yeah,
great
we
feedback.
call it a
actually.
park it, Pam Garrity, Patty, we call it a park it, a park.
Park.
Pocket park, sorry, a pocket park, meaning that it's a lot of neighbors that just walk there instead of having to drive there. And so hence, I think you do see a lot of strollers. And Ruth, I would say you live close by, correct?
Right.
Would you concur that it is a lot of, younger kids? That's what I always see when my kids were young. We went there when they were young, but not when they were older.
Mhm.
Well, that was one of the
Back
first.
to, go ahead. I was just going to say back to I do concur on the, as much as we love thinking about a wooded thing there, I concur with all of you on the green, the moss, the wet. I've been going to different parks and looking at specifically wooden ones to see how they are kind of after the wet and the rain. And a lot of those wooden ones have a lot of sunshine around them. And so that is something that we have to think about. Although I did just want to point out, do you remember the climber, Pam? Gary had one of the folks design, give us a design when we were looking at McGuan, and then Susan Daly and I went and looked and took photographs again at Mead. We could do a smaller version of that. I don't know, honestly, how many older kids we're going to get there. You might have some kids come off of the baseball field and the soccer field to climb a little bit. But I do think it's okay to recognize that some of our parks are just going to be, some are for smaller kids, some are for, the ranging ages like we see at Cherry Lawn.
Patty,
and
can I interrupt?
I think
for
we
one
have to
second?
be everything to everyone. That was my only point. Go ahead.
I just see Sarah sent an email waiting to be let in. I don't know, Pam, if we could let, or whoever's letting people in.
Yeah, Pam Gary, will you let Sarah in?
I don't see her on the list to be let in. There's nothing. Oh, now I just see her. She just popped up. So I will, yeah.
Thank you, Ruth, for pointing that out.
Yeah, and to
So
follow
back
up,
to the point about a climber, as she's letting her in, I do think we should explore, is there space beyond that playground where we could do a single, standalone climber, and then let's just decide what is the appropriate size, because if we then put in a really big one there and it's really little kids going there, that could become a health and safety issue. So just
that's a great
things to
suggestion.
think about.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second and introduce Sarah Hunsberger. She's one of our newest members with Pam Garrity. So welcome, Sarah. We just to let you know, you didn't miss a ton. We're just starting to talk about on the agenda, the Baker Park wish lists and things that we want to see there. And so far, Ruth's, we talked about how it tends to be a younger, our visitors are younger there. It's a little buggy and dark and maybe wet. And Ruth talked also about how she had suggested a rope, like some kind of climbing ropes, I think, structure there so far. So you can jump at any time. Just feel free. We're kind of I do keep the meeting, just for both of you to know, to an hour, because I do respect your time. So I will kind of try to move things along. So I'm not trying to say what you're saying isn't valid. I just want to get as much as I can into this 1 hour that we've allotted to this time. Thanks again and welcome.
Welcome.
Okay, sorry about that. Pam, Pam Geary, I wanted to interrupt for a second. Whatever happened to the swing set situation that we were getting donated by one of the schools? Did we decide to ever install that? Because I feel like that's going to impact what we do there.
We have that used swing set at the garage, but it's been sitting for quite a long time now.
So it might not be that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to take a look at that, whether or not that's something we want to do now and that was prior to getting ARPA funding.
Mhm.
So again, we'll have to look at the state of the condition of that and whether we want to consider putting, if it's in a very new condition, that might be nice, but I don't know that we want to put in something so old when we're trying to put in new equipment at Baker, but something for us to look at.
And also,
And where is it? Is it at the DPW?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is getting the feedback from y'all that it's a younger playground. It seems like younger kids do well with the swings. So even if it's not that swing set, maybe it's something we should consider, because if it is a younger set, people love that for their children. So
Yeah.
even doing the whatever that Gen swing, and is it the Gen swing where you're both doing it? The older no, that's
That's the
the
handicap
one where
one.
there's an older, an adult and a kid that could swing together. That swing, I don't know what it's called. Sorry, but that might be something there that we consider.
I think
the other
swing
thing we
sets,
talked
but
about-
honestly, excuse me, I'm sorry. I think the feedback from some of
Yeah.
the residents there that I've spoken to, they
Yeah.
are so excited about getting a swing set there.
Yeah, so we
So,
should include a swing set. Okay.
Yes.
The other thing when we talked about it earlier is that I think especially Sarah Baldwin, I think mentioned it, is having something that's more like natural and kind of fits in that setting. And I think she might have put some pictures out there of something like kind of more built into the site. I can't remember. I think she might have suggested a couple of things. Maybe she can send them to the group when she gets a chance, but I thought she had some references. I had myself personally thought that, I don't know if you guys have spent time in London, but I really like the Princess Diana playground has a pirate ship that has climbing things. It's kind of neat. So like having something that's not just like, hi, it's a playground. Here's a slide, here's this, but having something that's kind of like a like a thing that actually exists. Like Playground by the Sound, when we built it, we were trying to mimic some of that like ocean, like sailing, kind of that vibe, So I'm saying, like, if we have a fun theme like that we can play off of, that looks good.
Yeah, my kids definitely gravitate to that. Mine are 5, 4, and 2.
Mhm.
And they if there's like a ship or a thing to climb on, that becomes sort of the focus. Sorry, got a loud
It's
pop.
pretend play, right? Yeah.
That becomes like the focus of their play, and they kind of create games around that. And I love that.
I encourage you guys to look for it. If you Google, it's called Diana Memorial Playground, and it has like a climbing piece to it. I mean, I'm not saying this is the exact thing, but just the whole idea of like, they could do pretend play that's very natural versus, I'm a pirate, here's a periscope. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of cute.
Mm.
So.
And that fits with the idea of wanting to make something out of natural materials. Like, it's hard to make like a wooden slide, right? But like a pirate ship, that would be the perfect kind of nexus of those two things.
It's great. Go ahead.
Susan, you were mentioning that Sarah had sent out some pictures. I also had sent some pictures before
yeah,
when
sorry,
we
may have
started the
been you.
cherry lawn. I'm just looking back at my phone, and I think Earthscape was the
Earthscape.
company that
Earthscape.
we're
Okay.
yeah, we were just to get some on Pinterest, some ideas, and some of the stuff like from the climbing and the natural environment part would be more like going along the lines of like these like log. Again, it goes back to this wooden thing, the making sure it doesn't dry, making sure it doesn't get moldy, but using things like a teepee type structure where it's like rock climbing walls and ropes things and things like that, where it's more like a campsite. So I don't know, again, as my big thing is trying to keep it as not as covered, because I don't think that that one needs the shade, because I think the more open, the better. But like Treehouse, look, you know, like, and they had a lot of cool ideas and that company where I don't think we have to go with that company, because I remember Pam saying we want to try to stick with someone who already have a contract with, to avoid the bidding part. But
It
but
is
I thought
kind of
they-
cool though.
they have some
I
cool
see
ideas.
this website. If you guys look on it, it is really cool.
Bidding is
one-
not bad. You have to understand, bidding is good. That helps us to bring down the price, so.
It's called Earthscape Play, and it has a lot of great stuff, it looks like. Thanks for
Even if
bringing
we get some ideas of like what we can then say, like, these are some cool ways, like a theme, like what you brought up. And then the other thing I was going to say is when we were taking pictures originally, when we first started as a group, I remember taking a lot of pictures of who was using that playground. And yeah, a lot of the people are stroller based programs. But one of the things I think we talked about early on was that we wanted to try to bring in the 5 to 12 to also have that there. So that's why I think the idea was like to try to find that balance between the climbing structures for all ages. But I do only see like the little guys there as well. Like my kids don't go there, and they were 4 and 6 because they kind of outgrew it.
So
Yeah.
they outgrew it at 4 to 6. I think 5 to 12 is a stretch personally. But maybe up to, I don't know, if you're telling us 4 to 6 is outgrew it, where do you think, I mean, get it to like 6-year-olds then, or 8-year-olds? I don't think a 12-year-old's going to come where there's little kids playing.
Yeah, and it's also small. It's a smaller space too, right? So we can't do what we're doing at Cherry, where it's the two
Right.
distinct places. So it's not, my thing is my 4-year-old would still hang there, but the 6-year-old, all she does is the monkey bars, right? So like for her, she just goes, and then there's a small section, like 3 feet. It's not, I mean, maybe 5, 6 feet, but like then there's a few kids who are the bigger kids that do the same one, whereas all the little guys will go on the rock part and the dinosaur part and the slides. But my big thing was trying to find something that's a little bit more climbing based, to address some of those older kids, like what Sarah, I think, was saying, that her kids like to climb, or it's one of those things where I just feel like if the more climbing, I find the better.
Definitely.
Yeah, and back to maybe a single unit, right? As a climbing unit is also something. If we spread that out, and then there's a section that's not necessarily under as many trees as the core playground is. So that could be a place to look at.
Pam, what do you want? Do you have something to jump in on?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that most companies, I'm sure all companies, have units that are actually 2 to 12. So it's something that we can suggest.
Great. Did you, Sarah, were you saying something? I'm sorry. I think you were.
For
muted.
Baker, do we need to stay in the footprint? Is that? 'Cause
No,
it's-
I don't think we do at all.
Like it's big.
Actually, the retaining wall is, I have pictures. I don't know if I can share them, but both retaining walls that hold the back need a lot of help. So, you know, we're going to probably have to do some grading or fixing of that. So I don't think and it's actually, I don't know if you were, I mean, you guys obviously who go there all the time were there recently, but it's actually, if you go towards the back, towards the fields and the woods, there's a lot of space there.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. It's just that we're going to be constrained about budget. Pam, can you remind everybody what the budget is for this park?
150,000.
So it's, believe it or not, having just done McGuan, Sarah, it's not a lot of money. And I don't think, you know, we're looking at things like surfacing. I mean, it's things like surfacing could eat up a budget like that very quickly. So the more natural in terms of the surfacing, the better it is. So it's not a ton of money. So we're gonna have to do a lot with the 150.
I also may suggest too, I know that right now, Kate had reached out to me because I think the ARPA committee has some additional funds that they're looking to. So I wonder if we should try to increase that budget a little bit. If it's, you know, maybe even 175 like we had at McGuan might be helpful, because when we got these estimates, they were, you know, a couple years ago. So that might be something I can.
But they can't approve that they're reconstituting the ARPA committee now, so that's just a process they're starting now. Some of the people will be the same, some will be additional folks. She said that to you, but I don't know how great in detail she went. Our public works estimates for some of the public works things that were going to be covered by ARPA are hugely over the numbers. So I'd be afraid that she'd be trying to pull back versus give us more. They won't pull back because that's what we've already submitted to the state. I just was in this meeting at Rules on Monday and I think we should not plan to get more money. I think it's awesome that you asked, Pam, but I don't think we should plan it, Susan.
I mean, we could always ask, like you said, but thanks for giving that context, Patty. You know, obviously you have a very, a broader view than many of us here. So let's keep that in mind. But let's try to design what we can within close to that budget, let's say. I mean, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get some other support from corporate or whatever if we do want to go something bigger, you know. I mean, I just feel like though it's a pocket park, I think that all of our parks are going to need to be used very highly because of our new residents and the young kids that are moving in town. You know, we want to make sure that every place is a great place for our families. So let's try to shoot for the best that we can with that budget in mind, but not be, if there's something that we think we need to do, let's think through it and see if we can do it for the town.
I solicited the
Yeah.
feedback of a whole bunch of my friends who
Oh,
are
great. Let's hear
kids
it.
ages 1 to 6, basically.
Uh-huh.
And there are a few recurring themes that came up over and over
Okay.
again. Not all of these are going to be applicable to Baker, but just something to keep in mind for, you know, parks generally. The main, let's say, well, the main 4 or 5. One, to be fenced in, and ideally, if there are swings, to have the swings in a separate area, because when you've got your little ones running around and they get hoofed by a swing, like when you have multiple kids and you can't be with all of them, swings are actually kind of dangerous. And everyone wants them, but no one wants to like be doing this around. So fenced in from the road and possibly fenced in the separate area for swings. Sunshade, which Baker obviously has a ton of, but just, you know, we tend to gravitate toward parks that are a little shadier.
Wait,
And
can I ask that question? We feel that Baker does not have sun.
that's what I'm
very
saying,
limited.
shade.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, got it.
everyone wants.
She's
a
sharing
shady
her
playground.
general feedback,
Okay.
Patty, not just for
Yeah.
Baker.
Okay.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
good
I don't
for
know, but I
tourism
was trying to
too,
determine because she said Baker, but you're saying that you're confirming there's a lot of darkness there and that,
Yes,
so that on a really hot day, you might go there to get this shade. Okay,
exactly.
thank you.
Exactly. Like we would plan what playground we would go to in the summer based on, you know, the time of day we're going and whether or not that playground is shaded at that time of day.
Okay.
Like I know what school playgrounds to go to in the afternoon versus the morning because the sun is like, it's, you know, when we have those like months that
Right.
are 90 degrees and
That's
you're
awesome.
just like seeking out shade.
Right.
The big one that kept coming up over and over again was some sort of splash pad or sprinkler. I think a lot of towns and most of the parks in New York City have those. And it's probably trickier to do in a place like Baker, but where there isn't that I know of water running into it. So
Yeah.
obviously we're not going to be putting pipes in. But I don't know if at like Wheat Beach or something like that, where there is already a facility, if that would be possible.
Sarah, that's funny you should mention the splash pad, because when we were doing the Meadow project, a lot of people were like, oh, we should put a pool there, we should do some kind of water. And I was like, there's no way, you know, just the pool thing is always a hard thing for the town. But we talked about doing a splash pad at the Meadow.
Yeah.
But right now, because of, you know, what's going on, you know, with our budget, we kind of pulled stuff like that out because it is very cost prohibitive.
Mhm.
But that's been one of on our wish list for something in Darien for a long time. So it's good that you're saying that people want it too. So it's perfect.
Yeah, it was every single person said just somewhere, anywhere, a splash pad. Because
It's low key, it's easy. You don't need a lifeguard, you know, it's just water.
Exactly.
It's safe, nobody's gonna drown, you know, it's just, and parents could just let their kids have fun and get wet and stay cool. during
Exactly.
the summer months. So we'll have to figure out something, Sarah. We will, don't worry.
Okay.
Okay. Keep on going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it was so exciting.
Oh yeah, and then just in terms of I know I think it was McGuane, they had those sort of twisty slides, and I know a lot of kids have gotten injured on them, and so straight slides was like a big one, and that was the main ones. Fencing, shade, splash pad, things like that.
Can I ask you about the fencing? So
Mm.
you said fencing, then you said fencing from the road. So with regards to Baker, are you saying just against the road, or are you saying fence around that whole playground area?
I think Baker's good with fencing because there's
Around the whole area? That's what I
yeah,
meant.
yeah. It's contained. A kid can't run from the playground to the road, and the parking lot is so far away that you're not like. I think Baker is quite good with the fence. I think people. There are certain playgrounds where maybe I'm trying to remember. There was one. I haven't been to this one much. Is it McGuane, the one that's like in the
McGuane?
field? And there's a parking lot right next to it.
Yeah.
Like that one I find tricky and I tend to avoid, and we haven't been there for a couple of years, but there's no fence between the playground and the parking lot. And my son loves cars. And so like every 5 minutes, I'm like scooping him out of the parking lot. So things like that, when the park is like directly next to a parking lot or a road or something, just to have like a fence between those two things.
That's a good point. Just so we did look at the fencing for Cherry Lawn, because those are both, because we were thinking maybe we need to replace them, and they're so expensive now because of that, because of our limited budget. That's been hard to even consider for the budget right now. But what the other thing you said about fencing that I was really interested in was the swings, the fencing, the swings, because I grew up in a situation a long time ago in New York City where every swing area was fenced in, and then there was the playground that was also in a fence. So I think that's a challenge just for budgetary reasons, but I could see why that's something we need to think about for especially the younger kids when they dash around, like you said, like your son goes, even the parking lot, it's hard. So we got to think about that as we put swings in, how we address slowing kids down from not running into the swing area. Even
Sarah,
if
would you, one of the things we thought about at McGuan was putting bushes, a barrier of bushes between the parking lot and before you come onto the playground. Would that be, if they were bushes that were contiguous, would you consider that a good barrier to entry or not?
Yeah, I think so. And that would have the added benefit maybe of taking away the temptation as well, because if you can't see through them, you're not sort of wondering what's going on. Okay, what's going on. So yeah, that would be if and that would probably add some, I don't know if it would add shade, but like that could be a good fix.
Green space. Okay, thank you.
I'm actually thinking that a fence would be better because you can see, right? So if you had bushes, you can no longer see whether or not there is a child on the other side. But I think our crew could probably put up a fence like they did at Cherry Lawn.
You mean a posting,
like a split rail?
Yes, split there with some
bushes to beautify it.
But also like with the barrier in between, like the mesh net or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that they could be able to do that. It would be a great addition to that playground. So Sarah, thank you for that, because I think we could handle that pretty cost effectively.
Do we need to get planning and zoning approval for that?
No.
Okay.
No, only if we're doing regrading.
I think the only issue with the split rail is that kids will, just as an FYI, they will climb it. And, just it's another thing that kids will climb. So it either there's a little bit of a risk of injury, and there's also, you're going to have to maintain that because those don't last forever, especially out, if people are going to climbing on it, or it's.
Yeah, but we don't have many kids climbing the Cherry Lawn.
I'm wondering if you do that mesh, if it's.
The mesh makes it harder to climb.
Yeah, if that's, that might
help. And I do think if we could drop in some bushes around that, then it looks like, oh, this isn't, it's just a different kind of gig than a climbing fence.
We could put some, if there's good sun, could put some like herbaceous perennials in front of it, like maybe pollinate, like something. I don't know, something. We'll think about it. Okay, those are great suggestions, Sarah. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. And I haven't been there in a long time. How does sorry, I always pronounce it wrong. McGuan. I keep saying McGuane.
You know what? We're going to jump up. Why don't we talk about that
sure.
Next at number 5, because we're going to talk about timeline there. Maybe we can give you an update then. That way we stay somewhat on the agenda.
Sure.
But maybe we should allow time for it now. Does everybody feel like they got what they need to put in for Baker for now? It sounds like we're going to try to do something different there. Hopefully, maybe putting something there that might appeal to some older kids if we can, not absolute. But I think it might help only because kids are always different ages. Everybody has multiple kids and there's going to be always a kid that's older. So if we can help out by keeping their interests while the parents are trying to get the younger kids entertained, I don't think it's a bad idea. But climbing, it sounds like climbing was a big thing, right, Ruth? A swings if possible too. What else? Just be mindful of the wood. If we do wood structures, that there could be a slippery, that could get slippery because of the shade there. It doesn't dry as fast. Pam Garrity said she could look into maybe mosquito things that are more natural that can help us out, make that place, if it's buggy, less buggy. What else?
Theme, I liked your idea of a theme.
Oh yeah, like, because that would help stimulate pretend play and things like that. Anything else? I think that's a good shopping list. What do you think, Pam? Like, is that something you can go forward and start getting some ideas from vendors on? I'd like, if you can, I'd love to see or if those people would even consider, recommending anything. Earthscapes, right? Looks like a great company. Looks like pretty interesting too. And we've never had anything from them, so it'd be even more. I don't want to necessarily limit our vendors here.
Well,
Okay.
I have
the
a
interesting
question.
Go ahead, Ruth.
I was just thinking, I know we go back to the ADA, like just trying to be as compliant for all children and all abilities, but would we be able to maybe do another gated entry? I know we don't want kids coming from the road, but I'm thinking if we can somehow make a way, because I know it's a big grassy area to come from the parking lot for someone in a wheelchair or someone even with a stroller. Sometimes I'm watching that. I'm wondering I don't know if we can make a sidewalk so it's easier for the people to get there, or if we can open one of the gates closer to make another gate. I don't know what the might be, but I just have seen people coming with different strollers, and no, I don't think anyone would go there with a wheelchair because it's so hard to make that work. I don't know if we want to keep that in mind, that we might need access to get someone closer if they want to participate.
We could look into it. It's just that, as you know, like everything that's just going to add, especially if we did cement, anything like that's well, I was listening to you talking, I was thinking 5,000, 10,000, you know what I mean? So just to keep that in mind, but I'm open to everything, that, Ruth. And I think it's a good idea that I do appreciate that there are a lot of people, especially with strollers coming in. And you know what? It's interesting that from the parking lot to the playground itself, it's like all grassy and kind of a little, not too, but it is, there's a little bit of a undulation of sorts. So there is no path, it's just go through the grass basically. So you got to think about if we do something different, even just from the parking lot, if we do something. So let's keep that all in mind for sure about how to get to the actual playground from the parking lot or the sidewalk. Good call though. Okay. So I'm going to just shift gears and let Pam talk about how the bidding process is going with the Cherry Lawn Playground project. We're at 9:22 and I want to finish.
Right. So
Pam, can I ask you one quick question? Remember the RTM approved whatever the amount was to install those donated swings from Ox Ridge? So we can go and check out how they look at the DPW. And if they look good, then that could save us money and then we could install them. Just remember, we have that, unless that money got cut later and Kate used it for something else, we also had that install money that could help to apply for that. So
I believe it was 15,000.
Okay.
That's what I believe. And I don't believe it got cut.
Okay.
I think it's hanging there, but it is a good thought to check on that.
Okay.
So there's $15,000 just right there, Patty Baumgartner. Very good.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, let's do the update on the Cherry Lawn Playground project bids.
Right. So I sent out an email with specific, and I did actually put it on my phone so I could refer to it for those that weren't here, like Pam and Sarah. So the email went out to about 6 Connecticut vendors that are on the Connecticut state bid. And what that means is that they've already done the bidding process by going through the state bid. So this means that we don't have to go through the long process of bidding it. So I sent that to them. I got 5 responses, actually 6 responses. They came back, actually one in which Compan decided to not bid. They thought that the process was too, actually her response is here. I asked her why she decided not to consider submitting a design. And she said, we are always considering our chances of earning the business against the workload required to secure the project. In the case of McGuan, we went through multiple formal revisions, meetings, etc., before a vendor was selected. Based on the last few purchases the town has made and manufacturers selected, we don't think it is the best use of Compan's resources.
It's
So
okay.
That's
That's
why.
fine.
So when do you think, I don't mean to, I just want to finish. When do we think we can get some of the, see some of the designs that they're proposing and how, what they're,
So I just want to read this so that everyone's familiar with what I put out there.
Thank you.
So I put out there that we were looking for the 2 to 5 toddler area, possibly removing the gazebo and all play equipment except for the 2 newest play units, and the fence surrounding the area would be hoped to be reused. The 5 to 12-year-old playscape, remove all equipment except the large globe spinner and tire swing. And the tire swing is iffy because I did go look at it again and it is old. Both spaces will have a poured rubber surface. We know how much this reduces our budget, so we are, sorry?
We we never voted on both places having a poured surface. You put that in the bid, but that was never voted on by this committee.
So let me just finish and then we can talk about that. Because what I did say in there, this reduces our budget. So we're looking for companies to be creative here and find a way to keep this playground handicap accessible by designing wide pathways with the surface material, etc. Our budget is $500,000. Handicap accessibility is very important to this project. Keep this in mind while designing. We would like to know your opinions on keeping any other existing play pieces that are still in good shape, which will lend more funds for other areas of the playground. We would like to have designs submitted by email before May 4th. The committee will narrow down their choices after a few go-arounds and hope to make a selection before the end of the summer. Planning for a 2024 spring project. Please submit state contract bid with your design submission. So yes, this committee can make changes, but that was the general scope.
Okay, could you please send that to our committee? Thank you, Pam, for doing that. Could you please send that bid spec to our committee so we have it?
Sure.
Thanks. I took notes, but you have so many good details, so I
I
appreciate it.
believe I did send that to everybody, but I'll resend it.
okay. So what was the feedback you got, Pam?
So the feedback was great. I did have 3 companies already go out to Cherry Lawn to measure and look around and make notes. And obviously that was for their purposes of submitting a design. So we had Creative Recreation, we had Game Time, we had Emmy O'Brien and Son, which would be a new one.
We use them for Playground by the Sound, if any. Isn't that the one I use for Playground by the Sound? Mhm.
Correct. Yeah. So they were really excited about being included. And then Burke Playground, which is under a different representative name, which is not coming to me right now, but they're also interested in submitting a design.
So just to kind of try to plan for the future, when do you think we could get designs from them so we could, start considering and kind of hammering at it, because it took a while?
It says my email was to submit designs before May 4th, which is next week, believe it or not.
Okay. So this is something we can get before our next meeting, and then we can just look at them and start figuring out.
Right. So our next meeting is scheduled for May 11th at 8:45. So something.
Sarah and Pam, what we typically do is we get the playground companies typically gave their presentations to us online, and we kind of looked at it, asked our questions, and did all of that for each bid. Or it's I guess it's a bid, it's an estimate, we're just trying to pick their brain for ideas. And the idea was then we would look at all of them and come up with what we thought were the best, like what we wanted in the design, the final design. And whoever came closest to that is probably who we ended up with. Is that a good way to describe how it worked? I mean, we made changes to everything And you did hear about Compan, they were a little frustrated at how many times we changed, but that was part of the process for sure, because we weren't sure 100% what we were trying to, what we wanted to see, because we're new to the whole playground. I mean, technology, amenities are always changing. So we were looking to them to kind of give us a lead so that we could then drill down and get to what we actually, how it fits in Darien in our playground setting.
And
So-
creative did a great job and had no complaints coming back and changing designs, layout, space. So I thought they were.
They also got the
I
bid.
didn't want to continue to play in the game, but so be it. We have all these other people to participate now.
I wonder if, given changes to technology and that sort of thing, if it would be worth asking the companies who are bidding for the project about the splash pad situation, just to see if, as like a line item, maybe it would come in. I mean, depending on, like at Cherry Lawn, for example, where there's like water fountains and things like that. Like, I don't know, it might be worth just asking the question.
Sure.
I'm open to that, Sarah, if that's, again, if we could find a spot. It's just challenging because it is kind of limited there because
Yes.
we have so many
It's
different.
also very wet. It's very wet. So, I mean, to be realistic, we're working on a project that Susan referred to called Wee Beach Meadow and Trail. That is where that would be perfect. It really would be
Okay.
perfect down by the beach. We are so overcrowded at Cherry Lawn now with pickleball and everything else that there's not even the space, and the way the meadow goes down behind it. I mean, there's just not space there, but it could really make great sense at Wee Beach down the line.
Sarah, we can pick their brains about it.
Yeah.
Maybe not for Cherry Lawn, but we could totally good question.
Yeah, Pam can just ask how much
Pour and
would something like
play.
that cost. Yeah.
How much plumbing is needed, that type of thing. It doesn't have to be for Cherry Lawn, but we can get an idea, which we have their attention. We might as well, right?
Yeah.
It would be a great
That's great.
addition. It
Well,
would
we're
be
talking to
great.
specialists.
Yeah.
No, they're very good. So hopefully soon we'll get those, and then you guys will look at them and say, wow, this is great. It's been a really good collaborative process. It takes a bunch of meetings and a lot of great feedback from all of you to kind of, McGuan, I think was a great example of how
Yeah.
working together as a committee, we can accomplish so much. And so I look forward to it. That's why we added you two, the newest people, to it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a
Pam
question, Susan.
Garrity's on the line right now, but she was kind enough to let me videotape her kids last year, kind of after an event. And they were all on the playground at Cherry Lawn telling me what they loved, what they didn't. So we can use that as a focus group. That was so helpful, Pam, because as she said, her kids do range in age. And what she loved about those two playgrounds next to each other, that her smaller kids were on the smaller one, her bigger kids were on the bigger ones. But the bigger kids didn't mind going over to the smaller ones and vice versa, as long as they were, comfortably playing safe together. So that's the ultimate focus group. All your little
Yeah,
kids.
you guys are it.
on it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ruth. You had something you wanted to say?
Just welcome Pam and Sarah. Question is, are Alyssa and Sarah Baldwin still part of our committee, or are we replacing, is this?
They're there. They
Excellent.
just
An
couldn't make the
addition.
meeting.
Okay.
As far as
You
I know.
mentioned Curtis couldn't come on today. I didn't know about the two of
Yeah.
them. So I was.
They just couldn't make the meeting today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
We want all of you as much as you can give us. We know that it's challenging with kids stuff and yada yada, but the point of this committee was to have great representation at the different ages from the different elementary schools, particularly, so that we weren't serving just one part of town. So we would love it, but we don't force people to do, it's a volunteer effort after all. And we just want to see what you can give us at any given moment. We try to make it convenient in terms of the meetings and the timing of everything. That's why I keep the meetings so compact, so that we can get a lot done in the period that I have you. Anyway, why don't we go to, are we good with the playground?
I have one question, Pam. They're going to give us designs. Are they going to give us remember, sometimes somebody came back with just one flat price, right? 150. Well, they knew they were going to come in at 150 because that's what we told them that we had. And then we went back and asked them to itemize what they were, what the items are. Are they able to come back, or is that a second stage where they come back and itemize what the costs were? And I'd like to know what the breakout of the surface is. So that helps us figure out what we can get for what. That'd be helpful. Thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
for,
I think that will be part of the process. So when they come back with their design, I'm certain that we're going to be asking those questions.
okay, thank you.
It's great. I'm looking forward to those new designs. It's very exciting. Okay, we're up to the update on what's going on with McGuan. What's going on, Pam?
Well, we're on track. I spoke to John Hallerbach, and he said that the delivery is on track for June, which is terrific, because in my gut, I was thinking it was going to be July with all this backup, but we're on track. That's all I can tell you right now. I think by May 11th, I'll have even more information as to maybe, when in June. But right now I don't have that.
So we should be done in the summer, you're thinking, like
Yes.
installed and ready to go.
Your timeline was very helpful on the minutes that you spelled out there. So thank you very much. So it looks like they said total start to finish would be probably a month, but I love that a detailed, demo old playground in rough grade, 3 to 5 days, install 10 to 14 days, 1 day of the inventory, install the rubble surfacing 5 days, and that they need 24 hours before anyone can use the playground. That was very specific. Thank you. And of course, things can change if there's a massive storm or something,
Yeah.
but that helps us, as we talked about, that we'll have to get, an article in the newspaper and then maybe put up a sign at McGuan, right, Susan, saying, hey,
Yeah.
the playground is closed, but you're
Yeah.
going to have a magnificent one coming. So
What's up,
disperse
Pam?
yourself.
Pam Garrity, what's
Yeah.
up? You just raised your hand.
As a latecomer, can you just give me your 1-minute elevator pitch as what is happening specifically?
You know what we should do is I was going to have Pam Gary send you the final design that we
That would be
came
great.
with at just because it's hard to describe in a way. We had to accelerate McGuan because the surfacing there was pulling up very quickly. It was rapidly deteriorating. So we fast-tracked McGuan above the other two just so
Good.
we could do the
We
playground.
hated that
It's the surfacing.
service.
It was
The
huge.
surface
And
was
we also
massive.
were very conscious of it being probably our most accessible playground. And we have Curtis, you've heard his name, Butler, a name referred to a couple of times. He has a child that has those mobility issues. So he really gave us so much of a education on how to make it really accessible and not just kind of like, the glossing over accessibility. This is truly going to be an accessible playground. It's going to be all pour and play, which means that it's going to be easy for the wheelchairs, the strollers, anything that needs to get on that surface to be used. So we're truly excited about it. So will you make sure that they get the final design? The other thing I wanted to see if we could do, I saw this somewhere else and I thought it was awesome. For each playground that we open, I would love to have like an opening party that we can do, like something celebratory. Make sure that because I think it's really important. Like we'll definitely inform everybody when we close it, but just say also be on the lookout for our opening party and maybe we can get vendors, an ice cream truck or whatever, just to get everybody excited about the space again. And, do a ribbon cutting, whatever, it's a celebration of what this committee's accomplished, hopefully at each playground. So if we do it at McGuan, since that's our first one, we'll just start creating excitement about the new things that are happening in town. So I'd love to see that. But sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Pam Garrity, about not giving you the whole script. It's just hard to, when you see the design, and if you have any questions, you could reach out to me or Pam, or we can talk about it quickly at a meeting. But I think that I'm pretty happy with what we came up with there and a lot of new fun things.
What I'd like to do too is I'll get some sort of enlarged, I don't want to say poster, but banner of what
Great
the
idea.
upcoming playground is going to look like, the design. I can have that blown up.
That's
and
great.
Have that posted at McGuan. That will
Yeah.
create excitement.
Yeah, maybe when you do the article too, include that. Also, I
And
just
right before when the work is starting.
Mhm.
yeah.
Great. That's a great
Can I
idea.
can I
Go ahead.
piggyback one thing?
Sure.
I know one of the big hits with my kids is when they do the scavenger hunts in town. They've done it a few times. I don't know for what events, but
Yeah.
one might have been the Huskies for Henley. But I was thinking as thinking ahead, but for our opening to that playground, it might be something fun to say like to the kids, like a scavenger hunt throughout, like come check out and try to find the 10 things hidden in the playground, right?
Love
So,
it.
Oh yeah,
like,
great idea.
you know, like it gets them around different things. And then every kid
You
likes
you get to
count.
design that. Did you volunteer?
yeah.
No.
Yeah,
It's actually a
great
great idea.
idea.
I'm happy to help. I think that's awesome to
You know,
create.
we did it
excitement.
for the Henley, what was it? I think the Henley Bash or the Henley Happening in the fall. And
Yeah.
I created all the Huskies and paid them
See?
around. But it was a really exciting thing for the kids, but it will get them also to want to come to the playground, check it out, and to like
Mhm.
put them all around the playground.
Oh,
Great.
no, you're fantastic idea. That I love that.
Add it to our list.
Okay, well, anything else? Because we might be able to finish slightly early, which is fine with me. Because we didn't have as many participants as we normally do. So Pam Garrity has a question.
Quick question. So I was at McGuan last night for a baseball game, and Pam Gary, I'm not sure if falls under your supervision, but just as a side note, up on the observation decks, some of the picnic tables are still stacked. And there are a lot of little kids running around. I thought it sounded like a hazard, and maybe that was for like winterization, but I think they need to be just laid out as they should be for the spring and summer seasons.
I can put a call into Little League. That's their, it's under their provision right there. But I can suggest that they unstack those.
Terrific. Thanks.
Thanks for pointing things
And
like that
Pam
out.
Garrity, on that note, we just approved, well, the selectmen and the Board of Finance approved, and then the RTM will vote on the budget, the final budget, May 8th, for the budget for the town. And one of the things that is getting done is they're redoing that upper deck there at McGuan. Because if you were up there, you saw that there were a lot of, the surface was starting to cave in certain areas. So that also got, through Public Works, that got sped up. So there's a lot of good positive work going on at McGuan, which is great, but it's spread out at different times, which is very important.
It's
So
not the deck that will be redone. It's going to be the patio that's redone. So
that's
there's
what I mean.
Yeah, tree roots that are creating lifting of all that cement patio, which is a tripping hazard. So all of that is going to be removed and redone once the budget is finally approved.
Excellent. And you know that anytime you have any issues with anything going on in town, not just parks, there's that Q alert online, and they're pretty responsive. So report things like that, because obviously there's town officials cannot be everywhere at every time, and it's nice to make sure everybody's safe. So it's like it takes a community to help, you know.
What is this alert?
It's like a service request you do through the town website. Then they put out a Q alert. And the nice thing is it becomes documented. It's not just like I called someone and I told them that the lights were out. It's like now there's accountability, and it has to go through whichever department's responsible. Like if there's a street light out at your house, like near your house, you report it, and they're supposed to get back to you and say, oh, we've addressed your issue. You know what I mean? So it's okay. And it helps them because it kind of prioritizes what they need to do in the town, whatever department it is. And it
Well,
works.
I can just submit that picnic table issue through Q alert then. I wasn't aware.
But you should just call the head of the Darien Little League.
Well, if she knew that, if you weren't
Yeah.
sure, you could do things through the town website. That's what I'm saying. Don't, you know, because they're not, you don't know who's who. Like you would have thought that was Parks and Rec, but obviously it was literally, you don't need to chase things down. Do what works for you. And it gets documented. And as long as it's in the system, there's accountability for everybody. So
It would be an important thing to have, I think, up at like a little sign that says that, because I've seen things at Weed Beach before too that are rusty, and I don't know who to tell.
That's you could do that through the Q alert, or you could have also email Pam those directly. But again, like things like that, they fall through the cracks. Like nobody sees the little screw, like, because you're right there with your child and you're at the right level, you know. And we do an inspection of all the playgrounds, every year, Pam, once or twice a year, because it has to be certified, because otherwise, if it's not safe, then, you know, there's liability that the town has to face. But
And just letting you know, I'm taking care of that alert right now to Darien.
Yay.
I'm
I was
Yeah, you
just
see?
about to
That's great.
say,
You see?
thank you. Pam gets every single like negative comment. So I'm just
No,
giving you the
it's not-
thumbs up on all your hard work. Thank you.
it's not just about being negative or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just about making the town safe,
Yeah.
a place for everybody. It's okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you
anyone
guys so much. Any other last minute things before I adjourn the meeting?
Good meeting, Susan. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And thank you guys. I really appreciate your time always, and look forward to the next meeting. Hopefully we have some designs to pick through and look at. But Pam, if you don't mind starting the process of getting vendors for Baker. I mean, I know not that they're going to be on top of each other, but this is such a process. If you want to, you could start talking to people if you think, because I know you were trying to leverage it in a way that playground, if we do use same playground vendors, the pricing would be better if they knew they had a larger project to deal with. So if it works for certain vendors, yes. So whatever you think is possible, but don't limit to the people that are on the list necessarily. Okay.
Okay.
Does that sound okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye.
Adjourned.
Okay.